What's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Over Quota. Of course, I'm Jay Webb. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review if you haven't already. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is the J. David Group, where you can see all of these interviews. So my goal is to give listeners a variety of perspectives and insights from sales leaders who have a proven track record of exceeding expectations for themselves, but also for their teams as well. Realizing, of course, that not one person has all of the answers. And like always, the J. David Group, which is my company, will be sponsoring this podcast. My company helps high growth companies find software salespeople and sales leaders, the top software salespeople and sales leaders. Go to the jdavidgroup.com/hiring if you want to learn more about that, or go to the jdavidgroup/looking if you're looking for your next big challenge. And my guest today is Matthew Leaney. He is the Chief Revenue Officer of Silent Eight, which builds custom AI for financial institutions to solve KYC alerts. Matthew, welcome to Over Quota.
Jay, thank you so much. It's great to be here. Looking forward to our chat.
Absolutely. So unpack what I just said for me, if you will, when you say solves KYC alerts. Tell me a little bit about that and what Silent Eight does.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to. Banks have a couple of different regulations and guidances that they must follow in their sort of onboarding of customers and their screening of existing customers. They've got to make sure they aren't on terrorist watch lists or sanctions lists, as they're called. They might have to do some further due diligence if they're connected to a politician, or they might have to do some further due diligence if there's some negative news about this person. So in case of sanctions, they probably can't do business with them, or definitely can't do business with them. And then in terms of adverse media or politically exposed people, they can do business with them, but perhaps with some more checks. So that's the KYC process. Banks do it at onboarding new customers, and they screen their existing customers regularly. What we do is we sit inside that process and solve those alerts for them. So for example, Jay, if you were to rock up to a local bank and open an account, your name might hit one of those databases. We would tell the bank whether you were one of these people or whether you just happen to have the same name. And we do that through all the tools that AI contains, your machine learning, neural nets, algorithms, to come back to the bank and say yes or no, this is the same person.
That solves an enormous problem, I would imagine. I mean, literally it does solve an enormous problem for banks and for individuals.
It does, because I think for the banks, none of them want to onboard someone they shouldn't. They spend billions of dollars a year protecting us all from bad actors, right? It's a very noble profession. Compliance doesn't always get the press or the celebration that maybe it deserves, but every time a bank correctly does this and doesn't onboard someone, the whole world is a better place. And that may sound a bit sort of pie in the sky, but it's actually true. The challenge for banks is, again, using your name as an example, you might have 20 or 200 hits against your name, and they've got to figure out which of the 199 are just coincidence and it looks like someone who might be you. Maybe they have your birth date, or they live in the same city, or have something close to your name. But what if one of them is actually a really bad person? And what if that is you? What if you are actually that bad person? So it's really going through all of the noise of the potential links that aren't actually links to find potentially a true link, which could be a very, very important thing to find, and then deny you access to the banking system, which is really important. So yeah, it's a big problem for our firms, and we're happy to play our role, and it's a great thing to be a part of on a sort of human scale.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, speaking of role, talk to me about your role there, but before that, give me the preamble, if you will. Walk me up the 30,000-foot view here of Matthew Leaney's career, because I want to let people know why I was so excited to talk to you.
I don't know, actually, Jay. You have to tell me why you're so excited.
They'll hear
lovely to hear. So I was at Reuters on their graduate program in London quite some time ago. I almost gave the year then. And then I moved through Reuters into New York. Thomson then bought us, Thomson Reuters. The financial division I was part of them spun out with the Blackstone acquisition to become Refinitiv. And then end of last year, I moved to Silent Eight. In terms of roles, all been around customer facing roles, whether that's been on the retention side, the more hunter sales side, the more strategic side, and then various levels of management through all of that. At Silent Eight, my role is simple: grow the revenue. So design and build a sales team, design and build a marketing team, work out what our message to the world is, work out what our position to the world is, and encourage people to come and talk to us and do some business.
I want to get into your time at Reuters just for in a minute, but one thing that you just said is interesting to me. You said design and build a sales team. What does that mean when somebody asks you to design and build a sales team?
Yeah, I mean, I was sales employee number one at Silent Eight, and my job was to create a sales org. There was no sales org here. Very successful, fast-growing company who had correctly, in my opinion, identified that the step to get to the next level of growth required some dedicated salespeople. And they, to their credit, went out and did that. I think when you look at a lot of startups, they don't acknowledge the crucial role that salespeople play in success. I think sometimes they think that their product or whatever they're providing is good enough and stands alone, and maybe there's a diminishment of what sales actually is. I think engineers often think that salespeople just slick talk and don't see all the work that goes behind that. So yeah, they have recognized that was what was next for them, brought me on and said, hey, go create a sales team, which is what I've done. It's been very, very exciting. I've never been happier, never been more fulfilled. I've hired some wonderful people, and we're looking forward to a spectacular year.
And as you're building the sales team and really figuring everything out, how important is, and this is something that I wanted to talk about a little bit later, but I think it's a good time to talk about it now in the beginning, which is I noticed that you're strategic. From talking to you before and looking at your LinkedIn profile, how much of the just gathering information and data and those types of things inform the decisions that you made early on in terms of maybe customers that you're focusing on, decision makers within organizations? Like, how much of that plays a role into building out the sales team and the strategy and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think generally, I believe something that you said in your intro, which is there's no one right answer, and the more inputs you get, the better. I truly, truly believe in that. There's a level at which committee gets frustrating, but I do believe that you make a decision in isolation, you've really increased the chances of that being a wrong decision. So you might not go with the inputs that some people have given you, but you've heard them and you've factored that into your decision making. So I think at the start, it was really working out what we do, how that fits into our industry, and where that positions us against the competition, and how exactly we help our customers, right? So a lot of input, a lot of conversations in that, and that was sort of leading towards the marketing angle about how we present ourselves. And then you think, okay, who are our customers? What are they like as people? What sort of people do they want to interact with from our firm? And that was reasonably obvious to me, the sort of people I was looking for. You look at the sales cycle, you look at the commercials of what we sell, and you sort of create a persona of that salesperson. And then I went out and recruited the personas. It was quite straightforward. I think I had some very good chats with the founders, who are wonderful, smart, and kind people, and said, look, we're not going to get perfection. What are we going to trade for what? What's more important to us? And this is what I think. And they agree with me. They've been wonderful in letting me create what I want to create, because that's what they hired me to do. But yeah, I think in hiring, you can get carried away with certain people that you like, but as with most things, they've got to fit into the vision. You've got to keep coming back to, okay, this is the sort of person that we have decided over a month is gonna fit here. This person who might be excellent, who you might really enjoy, doesn't fit the vision. Therefore, it's not the right person. almost nothing to do with them and their value prop. Just it's not the right person for us and where we are and what we're looking for.
So let me ask you this then. One thing that you said is that they fit the vision. What, I guess, how stressful is that process in that? Because if your vision is off, right? In other words, if you have this vision, you have this sort of, I guess, concept in your mind as far as what the persona should be for the right salesperson or salespeople. If that's off, how much does that set you back? And then what's your fear level or your stress level around that?
Yeah, I mean, a vision isn't prescriptive, right? A vision isn't detailed. A vision is a way that we want to go to market. And when you look at who we work with on the client side, they're compliance professionals, right? I don't think it's difficult to say that they don't want to be sold to, as most people don't, right? They don't want a transactional relationship. Their job is managing and mitigating risk. They want a certain level of seniority across the table, a certain level of credibility across the table, right? So for me, it's very easy to discount pure hunters. It's easy to discount people that haven't worked in the AML space, or at least AML adjacent, or compliance, risk adjacent. You then say, okay, I want people who want to build long-term relationships, who enjoy people and enjoy relationships, people who are calm and understand long sales cycles, who have sold multi-million-dollar deals. So it's not so much very, very prescriptive, like this person has to have 6 years of this and 4 years of that. It's more sort of the persona. And if the vision, let's say the vision evolved to say we want someone a little pacier, let's just say, right? The chances are the people you've hired could go a little pacier if that's the way you wanted them to adjust their rhythm. Not that they're slow, it's more that we're not making 100 phone calls a day, offering 2 for the price of 1. It's not a transactional business, right? My team's goals are to do 1 deal a year, right? So if I had a hungry, potentially younger, more dynamic, thrill of the chase kind of candidate, just not right. Awesome candidate, be fantastic, but it's going to be somewhere else, right? Just, you wouldn't enjoy it. The relationship probably wouldn't last very long for both of us. So yeah, I mean, for sure, visions get tweaked and hiring profiles get tweaked, but I think it's a tweak of 5 or 10%, not 50.
Got it. Yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. All right, let me just back up here for a moment. And the reason I want to focus on Reuters for a minute is because, obviously I've been recruiting salespeople for close to 15 years now. And almost every time I talk to a candidate from that era, right, whether it's Reuters, they just got acquired by Thomson, or then they were Thomson Reuters. But one thing that sticks out, they stay with that organization for quite a while. Right. They seem to have had a nice career trajectory, right? They hadn't been doing the same thing for, 5-10 years. It's almost like every 3 or 4 years there's another move. And then when they come out of there, and some of the startups that I know that they've been at, they've continued to be successful. So I guess I want to ask you, like your early days there as an individual contributor at Reuters, and then just sort of what you learned there, maybe within the first like 5 or 6 years there. What do you remember about your coaches and mentors that you had there that you have taken with you throughout your career and now even into Silent Eight?
Yeah, thank you. I think, so first, speaking of Reuters or Thomson Reuters, it's full of really smart, really nice people. So a lot of people do stay for a very, very long time, and I was one of them, and very blessed to have that relationship in my life, because it is a relationship, right, for such a long time. I was able to be very entrepreneurial in my role. People gave me the support and room to fix things, which I think maybe isn't always apparent for such a large company. I was successful there and enjoyed every day there, basically. It's a job you don't enjoy every day, right? For my early years, I mean, in London as a 22-year-old, I used to bop around the city, meeting interesting people, talking to them about what we could do to help them. That's a wonderful life. It's wonderful. It's a brand new city. I'm from a little village in the middle of nowhere. And I remember thinking so many times, I get paid to do this. These people are so nice. They're so willing to share. I'm learning everything. And I get to help them out. It was wonderful, wonderful. In terms of mentors, again, it's a strong mentorship culture. So there's been a number of people that have helped me. The first thing I remember when you asked me the question was, there was a very senior salesperson. I can't remember his name. It was probably like 2001 or something. No, even earlier than that, probably 99 or 2000. And I was doing a pitch, and I was all getting carried away with how many things I wanted to share, which I think often salespeople do, especially younger in their career, right? It's more about you talking than listening. It's more about you maybe showing off value rather than actually providing value to your customer. Your customer's just there as a reason for you to talk, right? So I was getting all carried away, and afterwards he said, "Hey, can I just give you one piece of feedback?" I said, "Sure." You know, I was young. He said, 3 things, just 3 things. Figure out what they want, ask them questions, and then answer the questions. The fact that you know it all and you speak well and you can demo everything well, it's kind of irrelevant. It's what you do with it. Like, it's not about you and your knowledge, it's about them. So ask them what they want and then give it to them and then shut up. I'm like, yeah, good. I always remember that.
Amazing.
And I still coach something similar, right? And then another one, which was much later in my career, when I was over in the US, I remember a sales manager saying to me, if ever anyone asks you a question to do with a number, the first thing that comes out of your mouth is a number.
They're
right?
saying,
So he would be like, so what's your forecast for February? And some people would say, well, it depends on, I mean, oh, for God's sake, just say 14. And then so he really taught me, you start with the answer, and then you offer sort of increasing levels of detail, and you give the questioner the option of how far into the detail do they want to go. So you would say, this is my number. These are the 3 deals that I'm counting on. These are the 2 that might come in that I'm not counting on. And these are the 5 others that are included. I'm worried about this one. Boom. As opposed to so many people that tend to go from the bottoms up to say, oh, there's this one deal I'm worried about. No, answer the question. And that's really stuck with me. So much so that with a good mentor, these things become like almost as if they're you know?
Why do you think that's why is that so important to start with the number and then fill in the details behind it as opposed to the other way around?
Well, I think it's respectful because that's what the person asked you. And if someone asks you a question, they're then spending their time listening to your answer, right? So the first thing you should do is respect their time and give them the bloody answer. The second thing is because it makes sense, right? If I ask you a question, until I get the answer, I'm just hanging on, waiting. And I'm like, are you going to get there? And if you go on for too long, now I'm worried that I haven't been heard. I'm worried that you might not actually get there. And I might have to say, hey, excuse me, by the way, you didn't answer. So I think it actually puts your questioner at ease. And I think it gives you credibility and control. Like if you were my manager and I was an individual sales person, and you said to me, what's your Q2 forecast? And I said 100, I think you'd be like, all right, Matt's got this. Matt sounds in control, seems on top of his business. So I think it's actually beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, I'm smiling because, it's just so relevant when you're interviewing too as well. And one of the frustrations that I have, and I know others have as well, is when a candidate doesn't answer the question that you asked. And if you have a limited period of time because you have other candidates that you want to interview, or frankly, you have other things that you want to do in the day, and it takes 5 minutes for the candidate to get to the point. And to your point, right, you start thinking about other things and you're not listening to anything else that they're saying. Is like, are they going to get to this answer? Or do I have to ask it again, or what should I do? Well,
and also an interview, you give some leeway for nerves, right? For sure. The person probably not performing at their optimum. But then what I always do is think, okay, this is what you'd be like in front of a client. I don't like this. You seem like, if you don't answer the question in 5 minutes from me, let's say it was a minute long because you're nervous, that's still 4 minutes with a customer. and it's really got to be 20 seconds. That's a big gap.
Right. And there's got to be some leeway for nerves with a customer too, right? And so it has to be kind of on that same scale, right? You can only be so much leeway in both cases.
I don't give much leeway for customer.
Okay, well, there you go.
To be honest.
Well, let me ask you this then. Oh, actually, no, hold on. I'll get back to that in a second. Sticking with your early days there at Reuters, what were some of the mistakes that you made early on that you stopped making as a result? I mean, obviously you talked about showing up and throwing up a bit, right? Saying, just coming up and saying everything that you know, not letting the customer speak. And then, you got that advice from that person that says, somebody asks you a question, answer it directly, and then fill in the detail later, which prevents rambling and those types of things. Were there other things that you did then that you finally rounded out and figured out? And what point did you say, you know what, I've figured this out? Like, I know how to handle the entire sales process, and I'm just going to continue to use.
I don't think you ever figure it out. If you figure anything out, you should go do something else, right? I have no real interest in figuring anything out because then you want to keep learning, right? So I wouldn't say I've figured out sales by any means. I think I didn't used to say I don't know enough. As you were speaking, I flashed back to my first very, very senior meeting with the CEO and CFO of Thomson Reuters, which was, I don't know, 4 levels above me. And I was asked a question that I didn't understand, and I answered it and I got it wrong. Because they're nice, they gave me the leeway because what I was saying holistically was important and relevant and smart, if I do this to myself. But at that instance, I let myself down completely because I wasn't really supposed to know that, but I wasn't secure enough. And I was in this room that made me a little nervous to say, I'm sorry, I don't quite know what that means. Does it mean this? And that fear that people have, no one's going to judge you. What your client's going to suddenly say, I'm not going to continue this meeting now because you didn't completely get what I meant. Like, come on. So I made that mistake for sure. And I think like many early career salespeople, I definitely overcommitted a number of times. Because you get excited with the deal. You want to be the guy. You want to make your boss happy. You want the commission. Like, you want it to happen. And you just, I remember once overcommitting to a deal, taking my decision makers out for lunch as we're moving through the deal. And then the deal didn't happen. So I guaranteed it. And then I forgot to put the expenses through. So I had to go to my boss and say, hey, so the deal I committed is not going to come in. Oh, and by the way, I took everyone out for an expensive dinner, so you got to pay for that too. you get caught up. But I remember that mistake. He made sure that I was aware of that mistake.
Yeah, a very uncomfortable conversation, for sure. Now, you mentioned obviously that you had good mentors, of course, that we talked about. As a sales leader, as you started managing, teams of, I think it was like 12 to 14 or so direct managers that also had salespeople reporting to you and so forth. The further you get from the front lines, if you will, right, where you're actually doing the deals yourself, my perception of it is that the more difficult it becomes to impact that, what you just talked about, right, the sale, right, the bottom line, right, or the top line. As a sales leader, like, how do you positively impact the success of a company? Like, what do you think you can do and should do, especially, I guess, when you first come in or first take over a team, that you're going to positively impact those results, right? So that you are, as a group, hitting the numbers that you need to hit when you're not actually the one doing it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of questions there. First of all, yeah, it's very frustrating not to be on the front line, because you sort of just have to be like, you're all doing your jobs, right? I don't want to check in on you. We don't work in a factory, but like, you're doing it, right? There's the detachment personally with me creates a little bit of anxiety. One thing I've always done is keep one deal for myself, so that I am working through what they are doing, so that I experience whatever they might experience, because I think that helps me learn and helps me stay smart. And when someone comes in and say, hey, this isn't working, I'm like, oh, yeah, I experienced that as well. And I think the more removed you become from the actual customers, the more important it is to be open and solicit feedback, because you can you can get a presentation from a stakeholder that this is how it works, and it might not be at all. And if you're not doing the selling, you might not know that disconnect unless you're really, really open. I think to your later question about what do you do, I think you have to remember as a sales leader, it's not about you, right? Your only job is to make your people more successful, right? If your people don't sell 20% more because you exist, there's something missing, right? And that's going to be different for every single person. Does this person need regular one-to-ones? Does this person need more encouragement? Does this person need a little more firm conversation to motivate them? Does this person need space? Does this person need micro, right? I think you've really got to sit down and understand your personality types and what you can do best to support them. Because that really is kind of your only job. You hire the right people, you pay them in a way that creates the behavior that you want, you create a message in the marketplace that helps them be successful, and then you work out what you can do for each of them as individuals. And that's, if you think of the old school sales management, it was, what's your number? Get better. Thanks for that. Like, that's really helpful coaching. I appreciate that. I'm supposed to sell more. Oh, I didn't realize. So I think you just got to be calm. And the other question you asked was, when you come into a sales management role, I think in any management role, the temptation is to change something because you're here and you know what you're doing. I would urge anyone, having made that mistake at least twice in my career, the first thing you should do is nothing. The first thing you should do is listen and learn, because mistakes come when you're rushed, when you're maybe feeling insecure, and maybe your ego is pumped from your promotion, which is a bad combination, right? You're feeling on top of the world because you got the job, but you also don't really understand the job because you just got it. Bad time to make a decision. But it's the time that a lot of people want to make decisions. And I've done that, and I wish I hadn't. Maybe I should have answered that in a mistake question earlier. So that would be my one thing. Just the first month in a new job, you got to chill. You got to listen and learn, and then move from there.
How do you were talking about sitting down with each individual and understanding what they want and what they need in terms of, your help in leading them and getting them to a particular number. How do you motivate them to then exhibit those right behaviors, right? So you come on a meeting with them, you understand them, they understand you. They have, at the end of the day, it's a meritocracy and they have a number to hit. How do you motivate them to get there? And then how do you hold them accountable? And I don't mean like, this is your quota, you didn't hit your quota, but short of that, in terms of the way that you communicate with them so that they do, by the end of the next quarter, let's say, hit their number.
I think it's two different ways. And it's not just meeting them and understanding sort of one-to-one, it's looking at every way they communicate and trying to tailor what you think they need. I think it's twofold. So when we have group meetings, I try and approach everything from multiple angles to try and hit as many people as possible. So for example, some you try and hit through vision, some you try and hit through cash, some you try and hit through a bit of pressure. So in a group setting, I'll try and touch on a little bit of all of that. In a one-on-one setting, I'll more overly focus on what benefits that person. So for example, we just finished with my team here, a vision exercise. Why are you here, right? And I asked them for it to be something tangible, like what do they want from their performance here? And some of them said, put my daughter through college, or I'd like to buy my own house, or whatever it might be, right? And now when I can talk to them, I can talk to them about that thing. I can say to them, is 99% of your work this week focused on helping your daughter go through college without having to take out loans? Because then it's personal. And maybe it's a cheap way of doing it, but it makes it personal. Because otherwise I'm saying, how is your approach for your cash, for your bonus? And that just is a bit too transactional. It's not about them, and it sounds very sort of generic. Like sell more, I'll give you more money. Like, it's not very creative. So I try and personalize it. And I think also when I'm not there, they can remember what they're doing here. So we have a phrase in my team, which is one more. And one more what? One more everything. One more email, one more call, one more LinkedIn, just one more. Just do one more. And I want them to tie the one more to the thing, right? To the vision. So there's a number of approaches. I'm sure there's every sales book and every sales leader has a different one, and they're all valid. That's mine.
And that's why I like doing these interviews, because the books are, in large part, they're not in real time the way these are, right? In other words,
Yeah.
this is something that you're experiencing, and you just get that anecdote you just gave, right? You just had the meeting, right? And that's what's really, really cool. I just want to go back to one thing that you said, is you said that you keep one deal for yourself. You've always kept one deal for yourself. For sales leaders who will listen to this, and the light bulb might go off and say, you know what, maybe I should do that as well. But then the struggle might be time management. How do you do that? Like, how do you manage your time given what you just said, right? About leading the team and motivating them and all that, and then having to keep a deal that is complex.
Yeah, I think, like all questions about time, it's opportunity cost, right? Which choice better serves my team? Option A or option B with the next half an hour of my life, right? Mm-hmm. I firmly believe that spending, let's just say it's 2 hours a week on my own deal benefits my team more than doing something else with those other 2 hours. Because there are enough hours in the day to do it all, right? I'm not a big fan of sleep right now, of young kids, but I would rather, in this stage, I would rather work more and do more than make those choices. But I think, and it also shows them you don't think you're too good for it, right? My job isn't just to sit here and command over you and say something inspirational every Friday or whatever it might be. I get it. I get the struggle. I'm in it. I take the calls. I work the meetings. I do the early client meetings because they're on different time zones. I do it all. And I think that really helps your connection and it helps your credibility with your team. So I would, a year from now, I stop doing that? Maybe. But you know what? You can always find 2 or 3 hours a week. Like, no one's that busy.
Do you fear pushback at all? Let's say, for instance, if you close the deal and they say he's cherry picking or
well, I don't get paid on it, so it's not cherry picking. It would be great for me if they would run it because I wouldn't have had to do the work and they would have got paid, which would have made them happy. And it's not about that. It's when my team came on board, I said, these deals are in flight. You will not be getting paid on them. Boom. And then they know it, right? The world is big. There's enough accounts. No, I don't fear that. Because if you fear that, you've got a scarce mindset, and your team have got a scarce mindset, and it's all about, the worst thing in sales is fighting over deals. It's so demotivating. Fighting over territory, splitting deals. It's also unnecessary and doesn't create any customer value at all, right? I won't have it. So my team know that anything like that, you get a very quick answer. Go find your own.
So let me ask you this, right? How do you make it equitable then? You talk about, just let's take you out of the equation for a second, right? Because you said fighting over deals, fighting over territory. We've all seen it. From a headhunting perspective, when I talk to sales candidates that have struggled, one of the things they might cite is, the good leads were poured over, the customers were already talked to, the list goes on and on, right? The top guys they had the best accounts. How, as a sales leader, do you handle that? And then how do you, as you're designing the territories, make it equitable? Or is there such a thing?
I just did some of this, so I can tell you very clearly what just happened, right? So
okay.
I don't believe in dictatorship, right? The more decisions that I make, like I said earlier, that the more chance there are of being incorrect. So I ask my team, I say, you got the whole world, split it up. And I would love to not even know how you did it. I don't even need to know what your territories are. Just get on with it. So I set that out as a start, right? And so, some of them got it done beautifully, quickly, worked together, loved the culture, loved the camaraderie. But a couple of others struggled a bit, right? And I said, listen, you got a week or I'm doing it. and who knows what mistakes I'm going to make, right? And they came back and they couldn't get it done. So I'm like, all right, I'm carving it up. And I carved it up and I did it to the best of my ability. And I got emails from everyone involved, how unhappy they were. And I replied to them all and said, look, the tone of your emails was equally unhappy, which means I got it right. Right? If a salesperson isn't complaining about their territory, they don't want to win enough. Right? It's like, I don't know much about soccer, but like, if a striker is not offside a few times in a game, which stops the play and gives the ball to the opposition, you're not trying to score enough, right? The only way to not make mistakes or to not be unhappy is just to sit in your house and eat the same food every day and be very small and quiet, right? I want my guys wanting more territory because that means they want to win more. That means they've got some energy, they've got some passion. But yeah, sometimes you have to say this is the way it's going to be. And in this example, they were all equally unhappy. You get it right. Boom. If one person, the business is fantastic, and two were unhappy, you'd be like, okay, I haven't got this quite right, but it's not the way it worked out.
And by the way, the American football version might be the left tackle is going to get caught for holding every once in a while to protect the backside of the quarterback. And if he's not doing that, then he's not trying hard enough.
Holding is on the face mask, right?
Nope, that's called a face mask.
Oh. I was trying, Jay.
I know, that's okay.
I just pretended I got it right.
That's right. For people listening, I used a sports analogy before we recorded this, and Matthew, it was a football analogy, American football. Your face was like, I don't get that. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm not going to use any of those analogies.
And I did the same back to you. So we'll call it even.
Touche. Okay. So many other follow-up questions, but let me just move on to this question that I try to get from everybody, which is, through all the years that you've managed salespeople and obviously managing salespeople now, what, in your opinion, have you seen that the best salespeople do differently consistently? And maybe those are behaviors that they have, maybe there are traits that exist that they do differently than other people who constantly struggle and just can never really get any traction no matter where they go or what they're selling.
It's a good question. I think I'll answer it two ways, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
One is sales generally attracts more alpha personalities, more extroverted personalities, which to an earlier point generally means you're going to want to talk more, right? We did an exercise with my team about first meetings, and in the first meeting, the seller should talk 30 or 40% of the time, right? That is very hard to do as someone who wants to impress their new contact, share the value, talk about the company they love to work for. Being quiet for 2/3 of the time is really hard. So I think, and that's what's interesting about sales, you get these extroverted, maybe slightly more aggressive, proactive people, which is what you want. And then they've got to be quiet most of the time. So my answer to your question, he says not answering the question straight away, there you go, is they learn to flex and they learn that it's not about them, right? As a salesperson, you're only relevant when you're helping a customer with something. And if you're talking and showing up and throwing up, what are you helping with? You might get lucky and your throw up and show up was exactly what they wanted to hear. Be a pretty lucky person if that happened. So I think the best ones, it's not about you. The other side of the coin, I think the worst ones are when there's always a problem. The billing, the product, the marketing, the leads, the territories, the commission. Like, you know what? It's not going to work, right? Your job is to go win despite, because, in replacement for anything that may be wrong with our current organization, right? Maybe it takes too long to get an invoice, but whatever it doesn't matter, right? Maybe you don't like the commission plan, doesn't matter. Your job is to go win. In the same way that your job is to overcome client objections, your job is to overcome all objections and just get on with it and win, which of course is creating a client win. So I think, yeah, the weaker ones get caught up in the details rather than focusing on which clients can I help today. And because sales is a helping role, right? What do my clients need and how can I help them out, right? In our industry, it's so hard for our customers to get down to the potential true risk because there are so many false hits. So what do? We solve them for them. We use the power of AI. It's perfectly suited for it. And we solve the alerts for them so they can just check them now rather than investigating them. It frees up so much bandwidth. The AI is perfect. Not to get into much of a sales pitch, but we solved tens of millions of alerts last year and didn't make a single mistake, not one.
One of the greatest sales minds, I guess, of our, I don't know, I shouldn't say our generation, I should say of the 20th century, I would say, Zig Ziglar. I don't know if you've heard of that name, but one of the things he said that I used my entire career once I heard it is that you can have anything you want in life as long as you help enough people get what they want, right? And at the end of the day, that's what you're talking about when it comes to helping and sales. And I used to, my first sales job was selling used cars for a rental car company, and I felt sleazy doing it. It just wasn't what I thought I was going to be doing at 25 years old or something like that, right? But as soon as I read that book, I felt much better about what I was doing because I sort of changed my paradigm and looked at it completely differently and said, I'm not selling cars. I'm actually helping people buy cars. And I beat that like a drum into my kids, not literally, by the way, but it's you guys, like, if whatever you want in this life, right? Whether it's a happy meal or whatever, it's like you help me get what I want and you can get what you want as well, right? And you think about that and have that abundant mentality, and it can go far. So let me ask you this really quickly. I'm hesitating
before a question, Joe.
I know. Well, that's the reason. The reason I sighed and I hesitated was because I know we're running out of time here. It's obviously I asked you for an hour and we're coming close to it, but and I want to be frankly cognizant of the people that are listening so that we don't go on forever. But it's just so many things that I want to explore. One thing that you said about the difference between the best salespeople and the others, and you said that a mistake or the best people understand, I guess, if you will, that they should be doing much less talking, right? That the person that's their customer, their prospect, whatever, should be doing most of the talking, maybe like 60% of the time. It's probably hard to quantify, but would you say that given the same territory, same product, same pretty much everything fixed is the same, and that one variable is that nuance, right? That subtlety of having a conversation, right, with a particular prospect or a customer that you're engaged with, would you say that there's really the big difference between, say, somebody that's continually hitting their number regularly versus something else? And I know there's so many different variables, but if somebody were to just correct that one thing and they're constantly struggling, and then they said to themselves, or after hearing this interview, you're right, he's right, I'm talking too much. If I just listened more, I would be able to gather the right information. I would be able to move sales. Like, what are your thoughts about that? And I'm sure it's hard to quantify, but just give me your anecdotal thinking.
I think like what used to be called soft skills are now sales skills, right? So the interpersonal, the communication, that used to be a sort of a separate part of sales skills, and now it's, as it should be, it's now all sales skills, right? Mm-hmm. But I do believe that if you aren't asking questions and you aren't listening, you don't know what your customer's doing with you. You don't know why they're talking to you. You don't understand their problems, their exact nuances. Like, what will this do for the customer? So we say to them, one of our questions in our first meeting is, how would it feel on the other side of this? It's a very emotional question. It's a word feel is in the question, right? I want my customers to be thinking about the future in a positive way. And then you say, well, we can deliver that future. A lot of sales decks and sales pitches talk about problem statement. I don't want my customers in a problem mindset when they talk to me, right? We all have friends that when you talk to them, they complain about everything. You'll probably call them less, right? Even though you might love them, they might be hilarious, whatever it might be. You call someone and they say, how was your day? And they remember something that you told them last time, and they check in on you about that. Or last time you were worried about this, and they make it about you. I guarantee you call that friend more. I guarantee you think of that friend in more glowing terms and there's not a complete parallel from friend to business, but I think there's a close enough one. I want our customers to think of us as providing a warm, positive feeling, right? That they enjoy speaking with us. We are respectful of their time. We are listening. We know it's about them, and we can help. I received a sales call the other day, 2 weeks ago. The guy didn't give me one value prop about what he was selling me, not one. In fact, it was only about a minute from the end of the call that he even mentioned anything about his business. The whole call, he got me speaking about this firm that I love, AI, the problems we solve, and I was on cloud 9.
Yeah,
I loved it, and I was desperate for him to set up the next meeting. I was like, oh, well, great call. So I listened to it all and played it back to my team on how it affected me, and it sort of really reconfirmed what I believe.
Let me ask you this then, at the risk of going slightly over. Do you believe the statement then, or disagree, I guess, with the statement that people are more motivated when they're in pain than when they seek pleasure? As far as motivated to buy?
I guess in life, the avoidance of pain becomes pretty urgent when you're in pain. Right. The statement's probably true. I don't want us bringing the pain as a sales organization. Okay. Right? Mm-hmm. I want us, because I'll give you an example. You could go into a firm and you could say, which part of your KYC process scares you the most? How many mistakes do you think you make a year? What would be the consequences if the regulators found out? You could be that person. I don't know whether your customer enjoys that conversation, and they probably already have thought of those things. You could go in and say, what would it be like to be perfect? How would that please your regulators? What would it be like to solve every alert as opposed to potentially hiding some of them away because you think they don't need to be solved? You can position, in life, you can position everything negative or positive, right? Maybe the positive creates a greater urgency, right? Maybe I might shorten my deal cycle by 3 weeks if I bring in some quick pain. I'd rather have it 3 weeks longer and have a better relationship with my customer, because I actually think you bring the pain, you get less callbacks, you get less second meetings. Why would you, I don't know why you'd call someone back who reminds you of flaws in your organization that you already knew. I mean, I don't know what value you're adding.
By the way, the analogy you used with friends, I would say the same extends to some family members.
I don't know you well enough to say that, Jay.
That's as far as I'll go with that. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a new feature that I'm adding to the podcast for those of you who have been listening. I'm calling it the Rapid Fire 5, where I ask my guests the same last 5 questions that I just want to know, and I anticipate that you might want to know as well. So, Matthew, the first question I have is, what is your favorite sales enablement tool?
HubSpot.
HubSpot. Okay. Oh man, my curiosity wants to know why, but I can't. One thing that you do to help stay productive and focused.
Every single little thing I need to do is on a task list, so I haven't got to worry about it.
Okay. Yeah, certainly clears headspace when you're able to do that too as well, for more creativity. Best strategy for looking for your next job. If you're someone looking for the next job, what's the best strategy they should take?
I'm never going to look for another job. I'll be in this firm as long as they'll have me. If you are looking for another job, I think you've really got to focus on the cultural fit. It's a relationship. It's emotional. You're going to be spending 50 or 60 hours a week with these people, probably more than anyone else in your life, unless you live with a significant other or a child or another relative. Take your time and get the culture right.
This next question actually isn't going to be a feature in the Rapid Fire 5, but I want to put it in here specifically today for you, which is, how are you guys helping with the COVID-19 and everything that's going on here? How is Silent Eight participating in that?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we're a work from home organization, so our people are safe. So that's the first most important thing. In terms of customers, we build custom AIs for large financial institutions. As I said, we do one a year per salesperson, roughly. And it's hard to try and figure out what you can do. We don't make masks, or we can't retool our manufacturing lines to make masks or gowns or something. So what we've done is we've taken that custom AI and made it available in the cloud, free of charge, so that any firm that's facing a potential KYC backlog, I mean, look, criminals have not taken this period off. They're criminals, right? They've used it as a chance to try and be more criminal, if that's possible, right? So our customers and potential customers have got a situation where there's more criminal activity they've got to protect themselves in the world from. Potentially, if they've got a reduced capacity to solve alerts because potentially their analysts or investigators are in lockdown and can't actually do their job. So we've said, look, we can help here. We can solve your alerts in the cloud, send them back to you, so you can continue to do your excellent work and keeping bad actors out of the system. So it's all the buzzwords, really, Jay. It's AI in the cloud, on-demand commercials, and it's all true, and it's wonderful. Really, really happy with it. We can spin up a custom AI in about 2 weeks. So my plug here is, if you or know anyone who has an alert solving crunch, reach out and we'll solve it for you.
And let me ask you this, going back to the job strategy search, how would you, let's just say if somebody just wants to reach out to you after this to say, hey, I heard you on the Overquota podcast, as they have done with my other guest, just to thank you, maybe have a follow-up question, maybe seek you out as a mentor. Which would you prefer, or maybe they are looking for a job, but which would you prefer, how would you prefer them get in touch with you? A cold email, cold call, all the above?
I think LinkedIn is probably best. I don't answer my phone from numbers I don't know. I get too much spam, so that would be a waste of time. We're going to stop calling it a phone one of these days, right? And the phone capacity is the least used component. LinkedIn email would be received very warmly.
Fantastic. You heard it here, guys. LinkedIn email. Matthew, thank you for helping us all go over quota.
Jay, I appreciate it. Really enjoyed our conversation. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everyone.